Okay, so we're live. Um, let's see. Let's wait to see if we have some viewers. It says 0 right now. And so let's wait for
Yeah,
people to tune
yeah, I
in.
feel like, but also it's a good time, I think, because it's like lunchtime sometimes. Because I usually like go on TikTok or like most of the social media platforms when I'm at lunch while I'm like eating things like that. So
Yeah,
people are like, oh,
yeah. I think 12 o'clock here is a good time.
yeah, I think most people go out for their lunch around that time, 11:30, 12.
Mm-hmm.
So
At my old job, I used to go from 12 to 1, and I would take that time to sometimes go on TikTok and do like a 15 or 30-minute live, or that was my aim, and I'd end up staying for like the whole hour.
oh my
Um,
god, yeah, something very similar happened to me. The last live that I did with who was it with? The last live that I did, it actually I was hoping that was going to be 20 minutes, and we ended up spending so much time. It was like 45 minutes. It was a very long like conversation that we had.
Es que, you actually start talking in from one thing and you go to from one thing to another, and then the conversation gets really, really good, like, you just can't leave?
That's true. And when it comes to like immigration stuff, it's like it's so there's just so much information, that people want to know or they're confused. So it's like one little thing leads to another, and it just opens up another like conversation. So
Yeah.
there's so much work to do.
Yeah, that's how I feel like on TikTok. It's like everybody has questions and, like, I wanna give everybody an answer as detailed as possible, and then it's just hard leaving? And then I'm like, "Ya me tengo que ir a trabajar sin haber comido, bye."
Yeah, and yeah, that's true. And I think another thing is like every case it's different. It's not like everything is like uniform. Okay, you got to do this now, but like it's like you have to tailor things based off of your situation. So there's just so many different factors that go into like one question. You know what I mean? You can't
Yeah.
answer every question the same.
Yeah.
So,
So, hi everybody. So, okay, so now we do have some viewers. Isamar says hi. So, everybody,
hello, everyone.
welcome back to With Dreamers Together. This is Elizabeth, and this is David. David, as we've been following his story, he is a DACA recipient, and he is in El Salvador. He accidentally overstayed his advance pro document, and you guys have helped us calling Congress, contacting them to help get him back. So we're just following up with him, saying hey to him, and seeing where he's at. We're still waiting on an answer, waiting on an approval. And we just wanted to say hey to David and let him know that we're still here supporting him. David, hi.
Oh, good to see you.
It's good seeing you too. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you're at, how El Salvador is?
I think it's been quite a like a it's a crazy like journey. Like from the day that I arrived at the airport, that I was denied entry, my entry because of my parole had expired 4 days before entering. And till today, it's just been like like a crazy ride. Every day is a crazy ride because you don't know what's gonna happen, and you're here kind of like stuck in a country where you're not really. I was born here, but I wasn't really familiar with like just everything, overall. So it's quite a crazy journey with different emotions. You go through, um, like different like even depression and things like that because you don't know, like you're here, but you don't really know the outcome of what's gonna happen. Like immigration, USCIS are the ones who basically decide what's gonna happen, at the end of the day. So it's really difficult.
Yeah, you've been there since February, so that's about 7 months now.
Actually, no, actually, January 2nd, that's when I arrived. So about actually 8 months, because I
8 months.
remember, yeah, about 8 months. January 2nd on February, that's when we kind of submitted, a case over to them to try to see if we could, for them to review and decide what's gonna happen. So
What day did your advanced parole document expire, David?
I remember that it was good until the 10th. Later, when I arrived at the airport, but it expired the 10th of January, and I was at the airport the 14th. So I was 4 days.
4
late.
days late,
Late
4 days late.
before
How many days were you approved for? I know it was a very short period, but,
yeah, it was a
um,
very I remember, it was about, like, 2 weeks. It was a very short period of time.
10 days? Was it 10 days exactly?
No, it was a little bit more. I don't know if it was, like, 10 or 15 days.
Yeah, yeah, I
Uh,
remember we spoke
but it
about
was,
it.
like, very quick because I got the document on December, and on January 2nd, that's when I left, so it was, like, a very quick, like, coming here and leaving, and that was pretty much it. I mean, it happened so quick that I didn't even, what I mean, I remember looking at the document like I stated in previous videos, but it was just there's just so much information that people need to know that it's fortunately happened to me, and hopefully my case can help other people, because it seems like this happens, during the year. So hopefully whoever's watching can see this.
Yeah, we've seen one more case, and that's Andrea. Andrea, hi, Andrea. I know she's here in the comments too, and we're gonna be doing a follow-up with her. We're working on a date with her too. And fortunately, we have not seen any other cases. Actually, there was another case in Mexico, but the lady that had been stuck, she had some medical issues, but she didn't reach back out to us after that, so we don't really know what happened to her. Um, but fortunately, after that, we haven't seen any more cases of people overstaying their advanced parole. So I think that once we actually spoke to you and Andrea and made people aware, return before your advanced parole, like a lot of people started paying more attention to those documents and started questioning their lawyer, like how much time do I have to come back? Can I come back like how many days do I need to come back before just to be on the safe side? So it was a very unfortunate event for you, um,
Sure.
but it also brought a lot of awareness to the DACA family. And there's a question here in Spanish. Dice, ¿cuál es la actualización de su caso? Facebook user, todavía estamos esperando para ver, metimos la aplicación, bueno, metió la aplicación de Humanitarian Parole para poder volver a reingresar a los Estados Unidos y todavía estamos esperando respuesta. Gracias a la ayuda de todos, pudimos contactar al Senado y el Congreso para poder ayudarle a David en su caso y hicimos también entrevistas con los periodistas para, para que pudiéramos tener más atención, al caso de David, y eso ha ayudado mucho también, pero como les mencionamos, todavía estamos esperando una respuesta y esperemos muy pronto que David pueda volver a regresar a los Estados Unidos, pero, vamos a mantenerlos al tanto. I know we have a lot of Spanish viewers, so si tienen alguna pregunta en español sobre el caso de David, lo pueden hacer y les vamos a también a explicar en español. David, ¿hablas mejor español o el inglés?
Bueno, yo creo que me siento, el español está bien, es decir, lo hablo bien normal, ¿verdad? Pero como que, no sé, a veces me pongo a pensar yo cuando estoy hablando en inglés, como que, no sé, te da como, te sientes un poquito, porque eso es lo que, pues yo me fui de allá para Estados Unidos cuando estaba pequeño, entonces, como siempre, es el idioma que he hablado, mis dos hermanas son nacidas allá, entonces, cuando yo llegué, tuve que ponerme las pilas, como dicen acá en El Salvador, para adaptarme rápido y aprender a hablar, entonces, no, me gustan los dos idiomas, igual pienso yo que el acento siempre está ahí, pero siempre los dos idiomas me gustan
Sí,
hablarlos, ¿sabes?
yo me inclino ahorita, no practico mucho inglés y me he dado cuenta que mi inglés es terrible y me inclino más por español. That's why I think I feel a little bit more comfortable in Spanish lately, but I need to practice English definitely.
Sí, pero mira, esa es una de las ventajas de los soñadores, ¿verdad? Todos casi sabemos hablar los dos idiomas muy bien, digamos, ¿verdad? No nos quedamos como, ¿qué dijiste? O sea,
Sí.
contestamos bien, es algo muy importante que tenemos, las habilidades, poder hablar los dos idiomas.
Sí, definitivamente. Yo soy de Oaxaca, y de donde yo soy hablan todavía, le dicen dialecto, pero en realidad no es un dialecto, es un idioma indígena, se llama mixteco, y entonces cuando yo fui para México, los abuelitos no hablan muy bien el español, entonces ellos te saludan en mixteco y ya yo sí les contesto bien en mixteco y todos se quedaban como, oh, ¿hablas en mixteco? Y yo sí, sí hablo porque me junté con uno
Ah,
de allá, mis papás todo el tiempo hablan también. Entonces, pues, trilingüe. No me sale muy bien porque mi acento es chistoso, pero sí puedo,
mm,
lo básico, tener una conversación básica en mixteco también, y es algo bonito.
Oh, wow, entonces quiere decir que podríamos decir que tú hablas casi tres idiomas, ¿no? Porque
Sí.
no es casi igual que el español, pero te puedes comunicar como en lo natal donde tú vives, en lugar de
Ujú.
Oaxaca.
Sí, lo entiendo a la perfección. 100% I can understand it, but whenever I try to have a conversation, like, I have to stop and think about how I'm gonna say it. But, yeah, like, with the older, like, the grandparents, I can say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And, like, the more you stay there, the more it starts to come back to you again. Like you say, you're in El Salvador and you kind of start getting that accent again.
That is very true because for me, that's how I feel. Like right now, I've been here for about 8 months, so I'm always like practicing my brain because I don't have nobody else to communicate like in English besides like some of my friends, co-workers, who call me just to check on me, once in a while. But that's it, that I'm like, oh, I can't forget, like if I go back, like I need to like be like in point like again.
Yeah, that is very true. Like, you start to adapt to your surroundings, including the language, the food, the customs, the people, and it's a whole different environment. Let's see. Gabi says, does it say on the paper the dates they give you? Yes, Gabi. It does say the dates. You cannot leave with your advanced parole before it's approved, before the approval date, and you cannot come back after the approval date. I'm sorry, after the expiration date, which was what happened to David. He tried to return 4 days after it had expired, and whenever he got to the airport in El Salvador, they did not let him board the flight back because that document had already expired. So we do recommend right now that you try to come back 5 to 7 days before your expiration date on that approval notice, because sometimes, like, we've have noticed that the flights, they've been getting canceled, or anything could happen. And so give yourself enough time to come back. Maria says we all have an accent here. Yeah,
That's
so
true.
you're from you lived here in North Carolina, right, David? We could say you're my neighbor.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I grew up in North Carolina. So when I first moved, from El Salvador to the U.S., about 11 or 12, I moved to with my parents, which they live in North Carolina. And then later on in life, because of searching for opportunities, I moved to Virginia, and I pretty much ended up staying, where I'm at now, where I was at.
In Virginia, did they ever like tell you like you have an accent, like you have a southern accent?
I don't remember, but it was always like, "Oh, I know you're Spanish." Like he was like they knew they were more like, "Where are you from? What country?" Because
Yeah.
usually when you speak English, you could be from like anywhere from South America. I mean, Central America, South America, and things like that. And I always told them I was like, "No, I'm from El Salvador," and things like that. And they were like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Vanessa always picks on me because she says I have a southern accent. And one time I went to Raleigh, they do like this community showcases, college showcases. And
Hmm.
like at the booth, they were like, "Oh, you're definitely from the South." They're like, "Which town are you from?" And I'm like, "It's the same state, but apparently we have a southern accent."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, let's see, Ceci, do you wanna tell us a little bit about, the process, David? Um, Ceci says, "Is he gonna be able to come back?" Tell us, David, what is it that we're hopeful for?
Well, I submitted a humanitarian parole because that's the only way for you to in this type of case. That's what they asked me to do. So I've submitted the case back in February, and we have been like this is not easy to resolve. This is like it's very painful. It's like it's tiring because you gotta continually reach out to your Congress people. You gotta call. Like you gotta keep like pushing and almost begging them for them to help you out because at this point there's nothing you can really do besides ask for help and see who can try to help you because it's not easy. You're out of the country, and of course you're supposed to read the dates. It was an accident, and there was just a lot of miscommunication with my lawyer and things like that. I was never told, be aware of this and that. I don't. Maybe she didn't even know because a lot of lawyers they tell you like the wrong information. You're supposed to come back one day, and that's not the case. So, at the time, I remember I wasn't a member of the Dreamers Together community, and I wasn't aware of like so many people traveling, with the Mass Parole. But that was my case, and we have been working, calling. I mean, I have been emailing nonstop. Um, we have done interviews in North Carolina. We have done interviews in Vegas. We have done interviews with in the state of Washington D.C. I mean, we have been everywhere in this past 8 months. We have been busy, like working, like trying to, like, bring awareness, of course, to this situation, but also, like, for somebody to, like, step in and help.
Definitely. And I think whenever we were in the old group before that group got hacked, unfortunately, there was 20,000 of us, and I know, like, one day we were calling the Congress person, asking them for help in your case, and they were like, we've already gotten like a lot of messages that day. They were like, we've already gotten messages on David Guevara, and we're already working on his case. You remember that, David?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and I actually got a couple people, like, we were able to get to, because there's usually with, I've been discovering a lot of things while being here too, with when it comes to, like how the not, like how the Congress kind of works. So we reach out to a couple Congress people, and some of the case workers would take your case, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna tell us what's going on, sign like a privacy notice. But we were able to get to, like, the person who's in charge, like, the it's called, like, the maybe like the manager who's in charge of all the case people, to be able to respond, right? So we want to get to the people who can make the decisions quicker and who has the power to be able to, like, do something for you. So I got some emails. They reached out to me, and I actually got a call, actually, from somebody from the government from Washington D.C. here, asking them, hey, what's going on? And I explained to them, hey, this was going on. And it's crazy because I don't know if I told you, I've said this before, but when I sent the advance parole document to them, they were like, hey, we want to read the document. They could not actually find the date. They were confused. I actually had to tell them, hey, look, it's right here, because they couldn't find it. Because I'm going to let them look at it and try to figure it out how this works, right? And they actually read it, and they were a little bit, they couldn't figure it out how, how, like, the dates things, like, how the dates work. And I straight up said, hey, I said, look, that's what happened to me. Like, I remember looking, and I got kind of confused with it one day, and the time frames that's stated on the document. And from there on, they have been reaching out to USCIS. It's a process because they, as you guys know, it's two different agencies. Like, USCIS is an agency, and then so there's communication from here coming over there, and sometimes they respond. It takes days, sometimes months for them to respond. It's not like a quick kind of, like, you're leaving and then they're gonna reach and then you're gonna come back. It's a horrible process, and it takes a lot of time. It's stress.
It's very stressful, very tiring, right? I know.
Yeah.
It's just like your idea was of going seeing your abuelita and coming back home, and then it's a whole, like, your life changed completely, 360 turn, and on top of that, trying to deal with the changes, not being able to come back, and now you have to do this whole process, contact, basically, like you said, beg them for them to come back. And at the end of the day, I think it comes back down to these outdated immigration laws that they have. Like, it's not our fault. We were brought here when I was 6, but you were 11ish when you
Yeah.
were brought here, and it's not our fault. And here we are having to pay for the decisions that our parents made. They were only hoping to bring us here for a better future, but it's it's a little bit sad that there's nothing else that we can do for ourselves.
Yeah,
Even
that's
with,
very true. Mhm.
like, there's no pathway to citizenship. We wish we could go, like, to the DMV and purchase a residency and come back and use it, but I mean, it's not that simple. It's not a simple process. It's very hard, a very long process, and just with DACA itself, it doesn't give you no pathway to citizenship or residency. Like, there's nothing that we can do unless everybody says get married.
Yeah, that's true, and it's very like, I feel like everywhere you look, it's very difficult. Even, like, for dreamers, we're over there, right now. Where, like, you don't really know what's gonna happen. I mean, as right now, that has been in limbo. I'm always, like, looking at the news, and I'm like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Like, So it's a very uncertain, like you don't know, like you're always like, oh my gosh, like you're every day is like, are they gonna terminate this or no? So you're never at peace, like you're never comfortable, like saying, oh my god, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna focus on this. There's always that in the back of your head, like, oh, you don't know what's gonna happen. So I mean, I've lived like that for the past since we have DACA. When they were taking it away, when they were like saying no, when they were taking this and bringing it back, it was like it's just crazy, because I was like, I go to, as I said it before, I'm a student, right? I go to the university, and it's like I'm just trying to better myself and you know help the community and help the country.
Yes. Um, I know you mentioned university right now. We do you want to tell us a little bit about how it is that you're going to college in Virginia? How you got
Virginia.
there, if you're currently there? I mean, if I know it can be a little bit personal. If you're not comfortable talking about it, that's fine. We don't really have to go into details. But if you would like it, if you're comfortable talking about it, it's something we can talk about. If not, we can just change the subject.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you because I feel like we dreamers, like we work hard. Like when I think about a dreamer, I think of somebody who's like really working hard. You're trying to better yourself, and that's what my mentality has been since I was younger, and since they gave me DACA, right? Because DACA gave me the opportunity to be able to do these things. And I remember that when I was in North Carolina, the main reason why I moved to a different state and I left my parents was because at the time, in-state tuition was like they were charging triple, or like for me to like just take like one class, or even for me to go to community college and get like a course, right? Get a some type of degree, and that's the reason why I left. I left North Carolina because they weren't allowing anybody. Like even if you had DACA, it was so strict. And Virginia was one of those states where they started, understanding what dreamers were doing and things like that. So I moved over there because of better opportunities, and it was like the best choice of my life because I was able to get up, find a stable job, and also um, go to school. So that's what I think something happened. Um,
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I wasn't sure
I
what
don't
happened.
know what they doing. I was trying to go through the comments, and I think I accidentally exited the studio, and I'm like, "Oh my god, what did I do?" I'm sorry.
Are we still live or?
No, we're still live.
Okay, cool.
We're still live. We're good.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
so I went back to Virginia. I was able to apply for a scholarship called the Dream US. It's available to like a lot of, like, if you're a dreamer, you can apply for the scholarship, and thank God I qualified. And since then I've been kind of like focusing on school as well. Like actually before this happened, I was actually supposed to be taking a class this semester, and I had to drop the class because it's just so much stress, in my head that I can't focus on so much, dealing with this problem, and I'm busy reaching out to a lot of people, doing interviews and things like that, to bring awareness and things like that, and looking for help that I couldn't focus on the classes, so I had to drop the classes, and hopefully we'll see what happens, and hopefully I can um, finish school because I was on my senior year, so
What were
that's
you
what.
going to school for?
So it's basically business administration, business management. That's
Okay.
what the major was gonna be.
Okay. Um, and I know that actually the scholarship that you're talking about, they have open enrollment. They have enrollment right now where you can apply for the scholarship. I believe the deadline is somewhere in October.
Somewhere on there, yeah. I remember when I was over there, when I was before this happened, I was always like posted things, online because I wanted other people to have the same opportunity. Other people want to go to school. Like if you want to go to school, they help you, and
Mhm.
and to find information, because I feel like sometimes like you don't it's either you don't know, or nobody really said anything, but once you see the information, you're like, oh, okay, there's an opportunity, I'm gonna try it, because that's what happened to me. I couldn't go to school, and then somebody told me, hey, look, apply for this, and I did, and then I was able to do it. So What
That's
happened?
really good. Whenever I first heard of that scholarship, I thought that it was very, very, very hard to get because I'm like, there's like a lot of DACA recipients, and I'm pretty sure they get overloaded with applications. But I think right now I know probably 3 or 4 people that actually have that scholarship. So it's
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people, and every year it's like that. They really want to help. I mean, because it's like it's focused on like people who are dreamers. Who went to have a high school diploma or GED. You can apply for it, even if it's been like a couple of years that you've been out of school. Because I was actually out of school for a couple of years, looking for help.
yeah.
And then finally I found it, and yeah.
Yeah, so North Carolina is very tough. They used to have it where you could be sponsored by like by your local church, and basically your church would pay for your tuition, and they would allow you to go at least to a community college, which was how I did a community college. But 2 years ago now, or maybe it's been 3 years, I can't remember how long ago, they took that away where they do not allow a church to sponsor you. The only way that you can get into community college right now is if you're sponsored through like your employer, and sometimes employers don't want to sponsor you for college. So every day it's like they make it harder. And it's like you say, you left North Carolina chasing dreamers. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, it's like you're chasing dreams, and then like there's just so many obstacles along the way. Like our journey is like obstacles. You have to be overcoming so many different things along the journey, and some of us even whatever's like on the way, we still like overcome everything. That's what I feel like we dreamers are like strong. Like we don't give up easily, and I don't give up easily. I would never give up until I have some type of answer for my case either. Like I'm gonna continue to spread the word, reach out to people, email, creating interviews until they respond. Because that's what, if we just sit there and don't do anything, there's not gonna be any changes for anything for any of us. We have to be able to like say something and speak out.
Yeah, definitely. I know we've done a couple of interviews. Tell us a little bit. Like, I know you've interviewed with Univision, Telemundo, and
Yeah, we've done Univision and Telemundo, but like they've been, I'm very thankful, they've been very helpful, but we've different interviewers in different states, because North Carolina, thanks to you reach out to somebody from over there, and they reach out to my mom who lives in North Carolina, and they did a report for me, and then we reach out to somebody in Washington D.C., which is very close to where I live, and then reach out to some other family members from that live over there, and then they've been reaching out to people in my family, and just bringing awareness, and looking for help.
yeah, definitely. And it helped. It helps in some ways have that spotlight shine on you. Like, David, he's stuck in El Salvador and we're trying to help him come back because I know the interviewer from Washington, she had also reached out to Congress.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, one of the reporter actually has some connections with somebody over there. So yeah, I feel like somebody knows somebody who can help. That's the thing about kind of like networking or being on like an organization like Dreamers Together. Like somebody knows something that I don't know, and that information helps you. We're connected. We're like a like a big family type of thing, where we have each other's back and we look for help. And that's what sometimes when we're stuck on a situation, that's how we can help whoever's going through something similar or needs help with something
Yeah,
together.
definitely. Definitely. And we're DACA is a very big community. Even though sometimes we don't talk about, oh, I'm a DACA recipient, but there's a lot of us there. And I think now, like with social media being so big and it's like everybody knows everybody, like people that didn't want to talk about the status, their status are now like coming out and they're like, you know what? This is my reality. I am a DACA recipient. I'm undocumented. And I know, like, a couple of years ago, my parents would also tell me, like, don't talk about your status. Try to keep it on the low because like then people start asking questions. You don't have the same opportunities. And at the beginning, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna keep hush hush about it. But now it's like, no, this is our reality. We're undocumented. We have DACA, and we need something done like ASAP to try to fix our status. Um, and it's all thanks to social media.
That is very true, and what you just said is a reality for a lot of people, because I was actually one of them. I mean, on January 2nd, when I left from Virginia, no one knew my status beside my parents and my siblings. Nobody knew, and I was terrified of. I remember when I found Dreamers Together, I was terrified of speaking out and saying, "Look, I'm a DACA recipient. This is what's going on." But you learn that if you don't really speak out, you don't really say what's going on. Like there's gonna be no changes. You know what I mean? So I feel like I had to use my voice and really speak out because I was terrified as well. I didn't want to be on camera. I mean, it was like my first time when they were like, "Oh, do an interview." I was like, it took a couple of days actually to respond. I remember Vanessa reached out to me and they was like, "No, we have to do an interview," and I was like terrified. I was scared. I mean, that was my reality too. I didn't want to speak out and talk about my status.
Yeah, and it's just, I like because we don't talk about it, people don't know because I'll tell you a little bit like, where I've worked, I have to explain to them how it is, and they're like, "Oh, you're on a work visa," and I'm like, "No, it's not a work visa." "Well, how did you come to the United States?" And I'm like, well, I mean, I came undocumented. I was brought here as a child. "Well, why haven't you fixed your status?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, there is no pathway." And they're like, "Well, that's not right." And I'm like, "Yeah, but this is who you've elected. This is who your government elected officials. That's who's we need to change so that, if you think I'm a good worker, then vote for somebody that can help me with my status." And honestly, there's a lot of misconception and ignorance on like the legislations of immigration. Like they don't know.
That is very true because I mean, before this happened, I mean, I wasn't even aware of. I knew that you could do advanced parole, but I wasn't aware of all of the things you could do with advanced parole, which now we know because of their organization and all the different testimonies of people leaving, coming back to different countries other than their, where they were born. So it's like all this information that's out there, that we need to be aware of, and also we gotta use our voices. And if we can't vote, have people who can vote for senators and people who are able to change this. Because if we don't do this together, nobody else is gonna say or raise their hand and say, "Hey, look, we need these people need help." So
They don't care. They
yeah,
don't care, and we have to make them care, like, we probably can't vote, we cannot vote, but there's a lot of people that are willing to vote for us. There's a lot of people that are willing to, fight for us as well. So that's something, we really have to work as a whole. Como dicen, unidos jamás serán vencidos, and we have to come together, like the whole undocumented community, and stop being like, "Oh, these are DACA, these are DAPA," the DACA parents. Were they called DAPA? I
I
can't
think
remember.
I think something like that. It was something they were trying to pass on a little while
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
And so we have to come together and education, because like whenever I was gonna go to Mexico and I had to ask for my time off at work, they were like, "Well, then why haven't you been back?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't go back. Like I have to ask for permission to go back," and they just don't understand.
Yeah, it's like everywhere we look to the right, in front of us, behind us. Like there's always like there's no way you're like somebody do something, and that's the reality of that I'm living in right now. It's like and we have to be able to like help each other to be able to like make these changes.
And did you have to, like, explain at your job, like, what your status is, there? Were they able to understand it? How did they react once you told them, you could come back?
I did, but I feel like they were a bit confused, kind of like the same situation happened to you. They were like, "But why can't you do this? But you gotta take care of fix it." It's almost like you gotta. They're like, take care of it, Like if I was like, I felt like almost like, oh, because I was doing other stuff, like I wasn't taking care of it. It's like, no, there's no pathway. That's the main problem. You can't.
And
You
that's
can. It's so hard that it's not like you can just okay go take care of it. Like it's not like that. It's so complicated to the level that
yeah,
it's just you don't really know what to do, and you're always like figuring out a way. But the only way is like, yeah, you have to get married. Like you have to do this and that. But it's like, what about if that there's no other way. It's very very complicated.
it is because that's like that comment that you just made, whenever we talk about Oh, I have DACA, I have no status, and I've been here for me, example, 25 years now. Let's almost 25 years. No, actually 25 years.
Wow.
And they're like, well, you've been here long enough. Why haven't you fixed status? And I'm like, it's not like going to the DMV and being like, hey, I want my residency. Can I purchase a 10-year resident card? And that's it. Like, that's not the way it works. It's very sad situation. Like you said, it says it's sad, but it's true. Most people aren't educated when it comes to immigration.
Yeah, I mean that's very true, and I'm just glad that there's people who care, organizations who are like trying to help, because if nobody, like, if the community doesn't really help, like, there's going to be cases, a lot of cases, as you guys, we see, in the organization, people getting stuck, or people being misinformed and they leave the country, they don't have the right paperwork. It's just so many different things that can happen, and it can happen to anyone, to any of us, if you're not paid attention, or if simply if we don't watch a video of somebody, somebody testimony, to see what, what's really going on with, like, immigration laws and things like that.
Yeah, that is true. I have a question here that somebody put and I've been wanting to ask you. It says, "How is your abuelita?"
She's doing well, I will say. Like, I came here because of her. She needs a lot of help. She's old, so I'm like, I wanted to go over there and try to, take her out a little bit, to make her, they happy that, while I'm here, take her out to certain places that she's never been, and that's kind of like what I did when I was here. I feel like once you get older, there's just so many different issues that you gotta be paying attention. So it's kind of like that with her. She needs somebody to take care of her and things like that. But she's walking. I mean, certain days she's doing well. Sometimes she doesn't. But it's kind of like part of, I guess, being that age.
Yeah, I know we met her, on camera a couple of times, when we were doing the meets, the private meets when it wasn't on air, and she's just so sweet. And now
Yeah,
we call
no,
her
being with her, it's what kind of like, I wouldn't say, it's like I'm happy to be here, but it's like, we talk. I've really had a lot of time to talk to her and really kind of like learn about a lot of people that I wasn't aware of, like, or stories and things like that. Like, she tells, how I grew up and things like that, questions that I never asked, when I was growing up, and things about my parents, who are my her abuelitos, and things like that. Just learning about the family, learning more about, like, where I came from and things like that.
and they're so wise, like, they have all these stories of when they were growing up, times were harder for them and they had children and they were doing farming crops, and they have all these stories. And I think about sometimes, like, whenever I have grandkids, I have no like cool stories to tell my grandkids, because like my life is not as interesting as their life has been, and they have so much to teach you, and then you have so much to learn from them. Abuelitos are like awesome. We could really learn a lot from them.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and we talk a lot about that, because when she tells me, "Oh my God," when she told me the way how she worked, I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so grateful," and I'm glad that my parents migrated. When I was like when I was a kid, for a better life, because if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have. Um, I'd probably be working, kind of like having the same lifestyle that they had back then. But thanks to my parents, they were able to give me, opportunities and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know you said that she was really happy, you were there, but at the same time, she wants you to come back home because she knows, like, that's you need to come back to the United States, and I'm sure she's very sad. She will be sad, but she understands, she knows what's best for you, and what's best for you is coming back to the United States.
Yeah, no, she tells me that all the time, because she knows, like, I've kind of like worked hard, like, I've decided to go to school just to better my life and just better the life of my family in the future and things like that. And I've always been in focus, and always looking for opportunities, since growing up. So it's she's like, oh my God, as many of you know as well from previous interviews, I have a home, I have a house back in Virginia. So I have my home, I have a job, I have, my career and things like that. So it's like I've formed, a life over there. So it's like I have to go back. I have to figure out a way to come back, and I have nothing here. I'm just here. So it's a very tough situation.
It is a tough situation, but um, we're we're hoping we're hoping, praying every day that your case gets resolved and that somebody out there listens to your story and is like, um, we all, even though you were born in El Salvador, you grew up in El Salvador, but this is home. At the end of the day, this is home. This is the only home that you really know. Your abuelita's there, and we get a lot of those hate comments. Like they're like, primero se quieren venir para Estados Unidos, y ya que están aquí, se quieren ir para sus países. Like, make up your mind where you want to be. But honestly, like we're not from here and we're not from over there because we grew up there and we're a citizen of that country. But just because we moved or we were brought to the United States, that doesn't mean we've cut all family ties with the country that we're originally from. Like we have family in Mexico, and just because we now have DACA, that does not make us any better than anybody else. And that doesn't mean that we don't want to go back home and see our abuelitos or tias y tios and meet where we're from. Um, but we've seen a lot of those rude comments and like they don't understand the struggle.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, because I feel always think it's easily to just say, hey, why didn't you read the document? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But sometimes um, we see other people, like even lawyers and things like that, not being able to read things correctly. And sometimes we rely on a professional, as we all do. We think, oh, somebody has a title, they're gonna take care of us, but sometimes that's not the case. And we see these, all the time happening to people. I wasn't even aware of all this stuff, and that kind of gave me like, oh my god, okay, I'm not the only one, right, that makes these mistakes. They're also professionals. We got to be really careful, with things like that as well.
Yeah. So we have Angel. Hola, Angel. Angel, he's here in the comments. I know you probably are a little bit familiar with his story. So he says, I know the feeling, David, but we're in it together. So for the people that are watching and don't know Angel, Angel, he is also a DACA recipient. He's married to Perla. Perla was they were doing consular process. Consular process means Angel had to go back to his country of birth, which is Mexico, to do the consular interview. At this interview that Angel went to, he was barred for 10 years. Tiene castigo de 10 años. And the reason for that was because he had two illegal entries when he was a minor. But the lawyer that was helping him, who had supposedly 30 years of experience, she decided that it was a good idea for him to go to the interview in Mexico, knowing that he had two illegal entries. And I guess her excuse, if we can call it that way, is because he was a minor, that the law was not going to count against him and that he was going to be able to come back. So Angel has been in Mexico since November now. It's almost been a year also. And now like he cannot come back. So now that's somebody else that we're also going to be working with. So we this is why we urge everybody, like, get second opinions. And like you said, even though they are a professional, like make sure be in the loop, always try to get as educated as possible. Me, I'm the type of way, like if Google Google says like it's not possible, like I question it. Is it really possible? Like I try to read other people's testimonies and try to get informed as best as possible, especially when you're doing some kind of immigration immigration look, the word se me va,
The
immigration
process,
process.
right? Yeah. I got you.
And I know Angel, he's also in Mexico and he's living the same thing you are.
Yeah, so things like that are what make me come out and like speak to the camera. You know what I mean? Because of cases like that where it's like, there was an option there. I had an option too. They would have told me, look, be careful with the dates. I automatically, or look, you only have until a certain time. Make sure you come back 2 days after. Something very simple. So it's like that. Sometimes we trust, our lawyers. I trusted mine, and you end up getting stuck, because that's what happened to me, and looks like Angel, same thing happened to him. So we gotta be really careful, and these cases are happening every year. Seems like I was even aware. It seems like people, you don't have the information, and this keeps happening. So hopefully, what I'm saying in front of the camera right now, and from other interviews that I've done can help somebody else. So this stops happening, to people because
Yeah,
this is really difficult. I mean, you we have lives over there. Like I have a home, I have a career, a job, and it's like out of suddenly you just lose everything and you're stuck and you got to figure it out. What's the next step in your life?
definitely, definitely. It was like I was telling Angie, like there's no words to make somebody feel better in that situation because like the life that they knew is completely different now. They have to adapt to something differently. And it's like you said, the lawyers, like I always say, they are really good lawyers there that they really do care about the clients. But then there's some that they're like always in a rush, trying to finish one case, go on to the next. In your case, the lawyer never mentioned to you that you had a date you had to return by. So basically, you just got the approval letter and went to El Salvador. Um,
Yeah.
they never advised you, be careful, come back. This is the date you have to come back by.
Yeah, that's the thing. And now that I have the information that I have, I'm like, I have so many questions. I'm like, at the time in the interview when they took the money, should have said, "Hey, look, sometimes these paroles are time sensitive." Something like that. That would have gave me, And I also should have asked questions too because sometimes it's both way. There's a lot of miscommunication. But you think of, well, as a professional, you're going to ask the questions. They're supposed to ask the question. Hey, look, these are time sensitive. Be careful when you leave, when you come back. Just something like that. But it seems like some of them don't do that. But that's why it's really important to be aware of what's going on, and hopefully someone can watch this video and pay attention.
Right. Yeah, that's so our main objective here is first bringing you home. And then the second objective here is making everybody aware. Please, please, please double check that document. Sometimes we see people that they're like, well, I mean, I got approved, but my document, let's say we're in September right now, it's approved for November. They won't know I left early. Yes, they will. They will know you left early. So don't do that. Wait to go from your approval date from the start date to the finish date. Go in between those dates. Don't go anytime before that date and don't come back after that date. And sometimes, we think, oh, they won't know. Yes, they will know. They will know. Don't risk it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Just stay within those time frames and you will be fine. And then we have Lynette Salgado. She's like, so will David be able to come back? We do not know yet, Lynette. We're very hopeful. We're hoping that he gets approved, that his humanitarian parole gets approved. But we do not know yet because it is up to the discretion of USCIS. We're still waiting for an answer, and that's why we have David here, kind of seeing how he's doing in El Salvador, and we'll be following up. Hopefully, whenever he gets that approval, we'll be following up and knowing what the journey is. But we do want to say that let this be a lesson to all of us. It is a very unfortunate case for David because he's the one that's living this situation, but not because David is able to go and come back on humanitarian parole. Let's not make it a normal where we're going to say, oh, well, David was able to come back. I'm going to overstay because, at the end of the day, I'll be able to come back. If that's the case, let's not do that. Let's stay within our dates. Let's go and come back within those dates because, like we say, it's up to the discretion of immigration if they allow David to come back. So
Yeah, and
everybody,
also wanted to say that whenever I want to ask, everyone who's watching, and if they know another dreamer, like who's in the group, like whenever we do the calling to please help, because I feel like we're together, we can make things happen. And if there's like whenever there's an announcement, hey, we want to make calls to please support, support me, support whoever is going through something similar who's stuck, because um, today for you, tomorrow for me, I'll be happy to help somebody else. I'm part of the group as well who's going through something similar.
that is what we always say. We always say, the group provides a lot of free resources. And so the only thing we do ask in exchange is whenever we need help calling Congress, calling your representative, everybody of minutes. It doesn't even take maybe 5 minutes to, call and be like, "Hey, we need help on David Guevara's case," like we did in your case a couple of months back where Vanessa had everybody calling. It doesn't take a long time, and that's all we ask for in return is please as much support as you receive from Dreamers Together, please, please, at least give us 5 minutes of your day whenever we do have a date, to call and help somebody else out, just as we've helped you. Like right now, we have you. We also have Andrea. Now we have Angel Damian. So 5 minutes for everybody, it's not a lot. It's not a lot to ask for. I don't know if maybe we are asking for a lot. I feel like it's not. But like you said, David, please, whenever we do have these phone calls or these phone banks, please take some time and call and support this streamer, because it could have been anyone, and it could be one of us. It could be one of us at the end of the day again. Let's see. Isaura says, "Thank you, Dreamers Together, for helping them, giving them support and us." And thank you, Isaura. If you thank you for your support, because we did a call. I do not remember how many people we had calling that day, David. I know we had a goal of 100 people, and we may have reached that goal.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Yeah, we probably had, because I actually had my family members call as well. My cousins, we had like everyone who knows that I'm like, who I know that I'm outside of the country, to give them a call. And yeah, we got some responses. Like I said earlier, like we got some people emailing me, like the branch, manager of that department called me, email me saying, hey, what's going on? We're gonna try to reach out to CVP, and that's what I wanted. I want somebody who has the power to be able to do something. That's the idea of calling and emailing and sending, you know, postcards, whatever we can do to be able to bring awareness and try to help someone.
And yes, um, I think together we'll be stronger. So Giselle says, "I've called and I've emailed praying for you." You have a lot of support, David. You have definitely a lot of support. You, Andrea, and now Angel. There's a lot of us standing behind you guys, praying that you guys are able to come back home.
Yeah, no, and I'm very thankful for each person who has taken their time to send me a text, who have called, who have emailed. I really appreciate that. And that's the reason why I'm coming out on camera and telling people what's going on, giving updates and things like that. That way, my story can help somebody else in the future.
At this moment, is there anything else that we can do for you, David, besides the call and the email and
I think we have a plan, and in the next few days, we're gonna tell you guys, and hopefully all of us who are in the group can call and help.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, David, for taking some of your time today and talking to us. I'm actually very happy, like I mentioned to you off camera, to see you, because it had been a while. Whenever you first had gotten in El Salvador, we were talking very frequently, but then I got really busy with work and my personal situations. Um, and but now we're back, better, stronger, and we're like I've mentioned to everybody, no guarantees of bringing anybody back home, but that's what we're aiming for. That's what we want, is to, for everybody to come back home safely. And I want to thank you for taking your time today to follow up. Tell us how you're doing. I know it can be very personal, and sometimes like we don't want everybody to know how we're feeling, what our personal situation is, but it brings awareness to other people. And I want to say again, thank you for showing us that side of your personal life. um, and like you mentioned, we do have a plan. Once we get that planned, we'll make it public and we'll let everybody know the phone numbers, the scripts, so we can call again, so we can try to pressure for you to come back home.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you everybody, and thank you Ellie for being back with the interviews. As we did a lot of interviews, I remember when this happened initially back in February, March, April, and things like that. So glad to have you back again.
I'm very happy to be able to poner mi granito de arena. But the organization is really strong, and we have a very strong backbone, and everybody's here to help at the end of the day.
Very true. Yeah.
And Andrea says, "Thank you, Dreamers Together, for everything you do. Without you, this will be harder." Thank you, Andrea, for putting your trust in us, and you too, David. And we'll be talking very, very soon. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
All right, everyone.
You
Goodbye,
guys,
and
bye,
thank
David.
you again.
Bye,
Goodbye.
everybody.